Over my many years of MMO gaming, I've come to a lot of conclusions about my fellow gamers. A lot of conclusions. But there's one conclusion that I just can't ignore anymore, but on the other hand, it also makes for some great fodder. So this week I'd like to talk about, cue intro music, the Cliff Claven effect. Let me start with a story that I think we can all relate to. One of my coworkers was talking to another about physics, and when he stated that heavier objects fall faster, my inner science geek just had to step in. I explained that Galileo kind of settled this, 350 some odd years ago? I explained that the mass of an object does not determine its falling speed, but its air resistance does, and I explained that all objects on Earth are equally attracted to the center of the planet by a force we call gravity at 9.8 meters per second squared. I even volunteered to go on YouTube and show him that Apollo 15 proved this on the moon, where there is no atmosphere, and much to no physicist's surprise, a hammer and a feather hit the ground at the same time.
How about that?
To which he thought about it for a moment and said, well, yeah, sure, in some extreme circumstances, sure, but heavier objects still fall faster. You have no idea how frustrating it is when people science wrong. But the thing is, you know this guy. We all know this guy. This guy is so commonplace, he's basically a trope. Let's time travel back to the 80s so I can explain where the name comes from. One of the more popular TV shows out there was Cheers. I'll let you Wikipedia it yourself for a full synopsis. In it, one of the characters was Cliff Claven, who, well, roll clip.
You see, if you go back in history and take every president, you'll find that the numerical value of each letter in their last name was equally divisible into the year in which they were elected.
I think you get the idea. So how does this relate to games? Well, if you've ever played an MMO and taken part in a pickup group, you already know what I'm going to talk about. Inevitably, someone in your group will, at some point, decide to tell everyone how to win the mission, and always, their way is the only way. You see, because gamers can't be wrong. When they speak, it is gospel. Now, you're going to run into a whole bunch of these guys as you go about your travels throughout whatever world you happen to be in, but let's quickly go over some of the more commonplace ones you're going to run into. The 5-star general. The only thing missing from his advice is screaming, "Are you from Texas?" He speaks, expects you to follow orders, and then ultimately takes credit for the victory. In a perfect world, he's also the first one kicked off the team. The backhanded sage. This person will tell you how to do something, but always add the stinger to the end intended to inflate their own egos, so you get messages like, "Kill the ads and don't die like a noob." The "my main is." Related to the backhand sage, this person will tell you what to do because they always play the role you're in, and they obviously do it much better than you do. The rage quit. Now this person will use their actual presence as a bargaining chip. A little mea culpa, a little hostage negotiation. The punter. This person's bulletproof advice is to kick the weakest party member and replace them with someone who will overpower the instance, and subsequently carry them to victory. The curmudgeon. This person will spend more time looking for faults in everyone and everything else rather than trying to help. The regurgitator. They'll tell you how to do a fight by performing the same actions they've done, if they're to be believed at least, 1,000,000 times before. In reality, they got carried in the fight previously, and they figure that if everyone does the same thing again, they win. The poet laureate. This is the person who will tell you in Anne Rice detail how to defeat a boss. If the game let them, they'd produce charts, diagrams, and screen caps to do so. This also covers people who type in multiple sentences as you're in mid-fight, telling you you're doing it wrong, rather than actually keeping on playing. And the engineer. This is like the general, but a lot more subdued. They can explain the fight in one sentence, but they won't tell you why something works. Why is irrelevant. It's results that matter. And there's a bunch more, but I think you pretty much get the idea. Now, I want to emphasize there's a difference between people who post forum guides and how-to videos and the people who decide to do this in-world. It really has to do with how you present your information. I tend to lean on forum posts a lot when I'm designing a character or I'm looking to optimize my current one. The reason is I admit there are people who know the mechanics of a game a lot better than I do. But in the case of a guide, I'm actively seeking the advice. I can find what information I need, I apply it, I can move on. In the case of an in-world expert, though, more often than not the advice being given was never asked for in the first place. It's being thrust upon you like a spear with the same basic intent. And often it's just simply bad advice. I've had several so-called experts tell me to do something that I know does not work, but they insist it's the only way to win. And when we inevitably fail, they yell at everyone else for doing the plan wrong. Now this isn't to say that anyone giving in-game advice is awful, but a huge percentage of the time, they are. Most of the advice they give is inflexible cookie-cutter how-tos that don't match a group's strengths and weaknesses, which is why they are almost all doomed to fail. Hence why I consider it a problem. Now I'll admit it is hilarious when you get two guys in the same group and they clash about how to kill the final boss, and it's even funnier when both of them are absolutely wrong. Nobody wants to tell them. Okay, I suppose I should kind of get to the inevitable question. Why? Simple. Power. Gareth Brandwin put it best in 1992 on the alt.cyberpunk Usenet group thread, Is There a Cyberpunk Movement? And it was later adapted by Billy Idol for his Cyberpunk album.
Information is power and currency of the virtual world we inhabit.
It was true in 1992, it's still true today, and it'll be true when we plug our brains into the internet. When push comes to shove, whoever has the knowledge, or at least appears to have knowledge, gets to run the online group. It does go a long way to explain why people use inexperience as an insult. You disagree with someone? Call them a noob, short for newbie, slang for new player. It also explains why gamers don't want to teach. It would undermine their own power within a game if everyone knew what they knew, or correctly, what they think they know. This is also why I think gamers are so happy to spout off their opinion and pass it for fact, or why I get so many people on my livestream channel bragging at me that they can blast through the hardest instances in no time at all, and they want to play on my stream to prove it. They're trying to flex their knowledge, they're trying to be powerful, and more often than not I can prove them wrong, but it's just exhausting to do so. I'll just say there's a reason that I don't play with most people who jump in and watch my live stream. Okay, best analogy I've got for this is, let's say you're out bowling with your friends and some dude from the carpet who's drunk is screaming at you, "Come on, let me bowl with you guys! We'll score a perfect 300 every time and we'll get through so many games, it'll be so awesome!" Another time, another time. Okay, you ready for the ultimate punchline in this? For the most part, these people are wasting their time.
I'm gonna go up the middle.
Alright.
Guys, you two stay back.
The reason you're hearing us both laugh is because we've been playing paintball longer than this kid has been alive. This isn't necessarily true in MMOs, but the principle's the same. Okay, swagging some odds over here. 75% of any given group will probably know the fight. We've either been grinding on it for weeks, or we're looking for a gear drop, or we've done something similar leading up to this point. So in all reality, you're not telling us something we don't already know. Another factor is one of Murphy's laws of combat. Any given plan does not survive first contact with the enemy. You could have the perfect plan for how to down the boss, but then a lag spike wrecks the healer's rotation and someone goes down, and since your plan doesn't allow for variation, the group fails and you blame it on whatever. You're not helping anyone. Finally, and this is usually the case, players are going to do whatever they think is best in any given situation to achieve their personal goals. It took me a long time to come to terms with this in paintball, but your best laid plans requiring SEAL team precision are never going to happen simply because your teammates will be distracted by shiny objects. In the end, we're all paying to play the same game, and everyone wants to get their own enjoyment out of it. And sometimes that has absolutely nothing to do with your perfect plan. And actually have a really easy way that you can do this in your own game. Now mind you, I've done this stuff real world and virtual world, but understand your mileage may vary depending on group size, how much time you have, and all that other stuff. So just kind of keep that in mind. So, you're in a group, you want to help, but you don't want to be that guy. Okay, there's a really easy solution to this, but it kind of depends on your group. The first suggestion? Let it flow. Sometimes your group actually knows how to do something, in which case you can just play. You might be surprised how often this works. I mean, the river knows where it's going a lot more than you do. Now, if that's not working, and you think you're that good, observe who's doing what. Is the healer healing? Is the tank holding aggro? Or the DPS players in trouble? If you're good at the game, you should be able to play on autopilot long enough to get an idea of who is where, doing what, and why. Then you can actually give helpful criticism. One of the biggest suggestions is just to simplify things, or at least make them relatable. Now, most fights can be mechanically explained in a maximum of 4 sentences. A priority of targets, what's the best range to attack from, explanation of weird effects that a boss might use, what to do when the boss uses that weird effect. Done. Most of the time, you can do this in 2 sentences. You can even compare it to a fight that they've done earlier, like, oh, this is like the first fight we did, but X instead of Y. Simple. I also found over the years that if someone else thinks they can run the show, I'll let them. It's less strain on me and they might be able to teach me something I didn't know before. And we can always just do our own thing anyway if this self-appointed general is completely inept. The real key to this is to get everybody on the same page. Have a plan, stick to the plan. Even if it's a bad plan, you can make bad plans work. That way if you collectively stumble, you can pick things up and continue on with your plan. Now, I can already hear people saying, well, why should I bother teaching these noobs? They're not going to listen anyway. Well, number one, I wouldn't listen to you with that attitude to begin with. And number two, I've dealt with you before, and I don't think it's a complete waste of my time to deal with you one more time. Not this week. I'm not evil. I'm just an anti-hero.
Alright, I always ask this question. I'm always disappointed. Do you have a plan?